Welcome to DRJLT Economics. Today, let's talk about the collapse of the Silicon Valley Bank, SVB. This is the second time that I make this recording because yesterday when I recorded it, I talked about the possibilities of a bailout and the terms of a bailout. And since that I didn't really publish that recording, and since the terms of the bailout had been made clear, let's skip that part. And also, I forgot one of the important points that I wanted to make. So I'm making this recording again. I want to develop today's discussion, podcast, in two steps. First, I'll talk about the impact of this collapse, and then I talk about the circumstances against which the background that this collapse has taken place. Now, first, let's talk about the impact. We know that there is going to be a bailout, and we know that the depositors are going to be made whole in the sense that they have immediate access to the entirety of their funds. At least that's what the Biden promised. I guess that probably is not that difficult to realize, since they can just print money ad infinitum. So I think that is that kind of impact is not going to really materialize. I mean, for startups, for VC funds, and for companies that supply to and source from these tech companies, they probably are not going to experience a liquidity crunch. So I guess this is, for the moment, enough to ensure that companies that would not have failed will not fail simply because SVB has collapsed. Now, this does not mean that the contagion is not going to spread, because we already see that a lot of the depositors, a lot of the people in the United States, but also a lot of the funds and other companies, they are trying to spread their risks. They are trying to withdraw some of their savings, and in this way, I think there is going to be a couple of weeks, if not months, of instability in the financial system in the US, simply because there's always a potential for the next chip to fall, or perhaps better put, the next domino to fall. I was going to say, in fact, in my original recording, I said that this perhaps was going to mean a period of premature or perhaps untimely deaths of startups who, I mean, if you know startups, they rarely fail because their business models don't make sense. Because we all know a lot of large companies who have been quite successful, at least on the stock market, don't have any sensible business models. Startups fail because they don't have, they run out of money. It's simple as that. So liquidity is very important for them. So I think by bailing them out, I think we're not going to see a swift mass extinction event. Nevertheless, I think that this period of instability is going to change the outlook of a lot of the VC funds, and they may adjust their investment strategies such that in the next couple of years, I expect that there will be an abnormally high, or perhaps it's normally high because historically, in the last few years, there has been abnormally low rate of death for startups, for tech startups. And so what I mean by this is that basically VC funds are going to try to mitigate their risks, and they are going to invest in less. Basically, they are going to perhaps adjust their investment strategies, and a lot of the startups that have been receiving funding may no longer receive funding, and once they run out of their current account, they may just have to close doors. So that's perhaps the extent to which the immediate economic impact of this collapse could be. But let's certainly not forget that this is a very fluid situation. And before we move on to the second part of this discussion about the background, the circumstances, let's not forget that SVB is not the first bank to fail, and it's not the first financial institution to fail. We can remember the FTX saga, and now I think we should move on to the circumstances, because it's really sketchy. Now, first, let's talk about the large players. I think some of the large players, they are better capitalized. I'm not going to name names, but those large investment banks are better capitalized. They have much closer ties to the basically to the government, and they are better prepared. So if there is an extinction event, I think they are going to benefit from this by picking up the pieces at huge discounts, right? So that is very likely to happen. Sorry, that was another part of the impact that I forgot to mention. Now let's really move on to the circumstances. First, I think as I said, this is not the first piece to fall, not the first domino to fall, and there is a reason, right? There is, in the big picture, there is a very clear reason that a lot of the financial system institutions are failing. This is basically because that the U.S. has been running over too long a period, very low interest rates with very high levels of debt, and more recently, it has to, the Federal Reserve had to increase the interest rate, and this basically posed a lot of challenges to financial institutions, and basically, a lot of them have been holding a lot of the U.S. Treasury bonds, and all this stuff basically, and also during the previous period when the interest rate had been low, all this had meant that over the over a decade, these banks have not been really making a lot of money from their loan business, and they more recently have been losing money from the treasury bonds and also a lot of the other businesses. So they have liquidity issues, and so that's basically the major backdrop against which we have this more recent collapse. But obviously, it's not the first one, because we know the FTX saga, and we know that for sure that in the next couple of months there will be other banks that will be on the brink and need bailout. And so that's the first circumstance. And another thing I want to say is that, who is going to be blamed on for this? An instinct says that it's probably the Russians, because obviously this is a bank run, and people are going to eventually people will come around and say that this would not have happened had people not rushed to withdraw their savings. And who actually initiated this this rush to withdraw their money? It's probably the Russians, maybe. But at the same time, I think there is a lot of Russian conspiracy fatigue in the United States. So, and I think that more recently, it's been the Chinese that's come on center stage when it comes to conspiracy theories. So it is not unlikely that some guys in the U.S. Senate, perhaps Peter, whatever, or someone at MSDNC, perhaps Rachel, whatever, may come out and say that it is the Chinese who posted on some social media fake news saying that that people need to withdraw their savings from XYZ banks, and this initiated the collapse of SVB and other banks that will come. I think this is something that we should look for. I think we should not be surprised about. So that's that. And another circumstance is that we need to keep in mind is that why is it exactly that these players are, this bank being so important ostensibly to the U.S. economy first failed? We know that the FTX thing was involved in some of the financial transactions with regards to the Ukrainian conflict. Could the SVB have something to do with not necessarily the Ukrainian conflict, but something similarly nefarious? Could it be that some people in high places have some money and they lost a bunch of money, and now they need the cover of the collapse of a bank, so that the federal government, the Federal Reserve, will be able to make them whole again? That's just my conspiracy. That's the third point. And the last point is that I think this is really another step in the de-dollarization process. I think in the months and years ahead, as the US dollar continues to try to navigate the difficult situation of high debt, low interest, low growth, and also high social instability, and also there's military conflict, external conflict. Will the U.S. government, the leadership, be able to maintain the supremacy of the U.S. dollar in the current global financial system? In fact, will they be able to save the financial system as it stands? I think I actually have some confidence in them because they're not all fools. Everyone isn't the Biden White House. So they will have some success. But I think this event is really, again, testing the trust or confidence that people outside the U.S. have in the long-term viability of the dollar, and against the backdrop of a rapprochement of between Iran and Saudi Arabia, and with the more or less solidification of a, let's say, area of good relations among the Asian nations. It seems that a challenge will be posed more compellingly or more convincingly. And I will not be surprised that in a decade or maybe 15 years, time, we will see the dominance of the dollar no longer exist, that it becomes only one of several, maybe one of two, maybe one of three options for foreign trade, and its dominance can fall under 50%. It could be 40%, 30%, really depends on how things go. But I think the days where the US dollar is undoubtedly the number one currency, we are counting the final days of it. Now, as I made very clear, abundantly clear in my previous podcast, I believe that a collapse of the US dollar supremacy too quick could be very dangerous for the financial stability of the entire world. So I think, but still, I think it probably will not be so fast. But from now on, it perhaps is going to be what is it called? A troubled waters, or basically very difficult to navigate for the U.S. in the next few years. The good days perhaps have gone. All right, that's my take on the SVB saga. Thanks for listening, and check out my website drglt.com, where I post mostly photos. I don't think I'm going to write another blog because, as I mentioned before, there's GPT-3, ChatGPT. They write blogs that search engines really love, and it does not make sense for people to really write anything anymore. And indeed, if you this is a side comment, but indeed, if you watch YouTube, you see that a lot of times there are those very stiff sounding videos. Now there are AI for writing the script. You can use GPT. There are AI, actually you don't need AI, but to sound very good, there are actually AIs that can sound very, very natural. I have used some AIs to generate voice, and they sound really, really, really natural. And finally, there are even AIs now that can pick videos clips. And so you can have a whole pipeline of YouTube videos made entirely with AI, with script, and you can generate and then use the API to push to YouTube. You can push very quickly. I think this is not really really sustainable. I'm still making recordings because I like to talk from time to time, and I liked the idea of at some point maybe some people may be listening, but the fact is, if you want to do YouTube videos or do any social media as a livelihood, I think AI is really going to disrupt that, just like it disrupted the web media. I think now it's almost impossible to make any money using creating websites, however good your website is, unless you use AI and generate tons of basically spam pages. You will know what I'm talking about when you look at pages with lots of FAQs. Anyways, thanks for listening and have a great day.